Hi everyone. As part of this problem, we have the input table as class results. This table has below columns student ID, that is the ID of the student name, that is the name of the student, subject name, that is the name of the subject in which the student has given the exam, and marks, that is the total marks that are secured by the student in that particular subject. So every entry gives information about the student along with the subject in which they have appeared in the exam and the marks that they have scored in that. Now, as part of the output, we need to identify the toppers in each of the subject. So here we have 5 subjects. We need to identify the student ID along with the student name in the output for each of the subject. And that is what we need to determine. So hope the problem statement is clear. So if we see here, for example, in English, Shivam is the highest scorer. So what we have done here is we have taken the same data and we have ordered it based on the subject name, marks in the descending order, so that the top scorer is at the highest place, and then we have the student ID. So one thing to note here is if there are two students who have scored the same number of marks, in that case, the priority in the topper board will be given to the student with the lower student ID. So if we see here, for example, in English, Shivam is the top scorer with 95 marks and his student ID is 5. So as we see here, Shivam has been present in the output under the English column. Similarly, let's check for mathematics. So if we scroll down in the mathematics subject, we have Madhav with student ID as 13, scoring 94 marks. So if we check here, it is Madhav with student ID as 13. So this way, for every subject, we have to determine the topper student and show the student ID along with the student name in the output. So hope the problem statement is clear. So let's go ahead and solve this problem. So we will work on this input table, that is class results. So as we expect, the starting point will be to identify who are the toppers. And we can use the window function here to identify the topper. So we will use the row number function as we want only unique entries to be considered. And in the over clause, we will specify that we want to partition it based on the subject. That is, each subject will have separate grouping because we want to identify the topper in each of the subjects separately. And then we will order it based on the marks in descending order so that the student with highest marks is at the top. And also, if there are students with the same marks, we want to do a second level of ordering based on student ID. And that is to be in the ascending order. So this will be our rank column that we will be deriving. So let's run and see the output. Now, as we can see, we have identified for every subject who is the topper. So if we scroll down at any place, if there will be any ties, then we will consider the, for example, here there is a tie of student, both of them scoring 85 marks. So in this case, since this student Ritu has lower student ID, that is 2, then she will be considered with lower rank as compared to Nikhil, who has a higher student ID. So this way we have added the ranking and identified who are the toppers in each of the subject. So as we can see, for every subject, the ranking will start from 1 as we have given the partitioning based on the subject column. So now what we need to do is we need to simply filter out the records with rank equal to 1. So what we will do is we will add this as part of a CTE. Let's call it as subject DET, subject details. So let's fetch the data from this CTE, that is subject DET. And we will fetch only those records where the rank is 1. So let's run and see the output. Okay, so now we have determined for every subject who are the toppers in that particular subject. The next step is we need to get a single row and that should have all the toppers name with the student ID and student name. So now we will start working on that process. So what we will do is we are going to create separate columns for every subject. So let's do it step by step how we are going to proceed here. So we are going to check if the subject name is English. So if the subject name is English, in that case, we will keep the marks as it is. Else, say we will not have a else condition because we want null to be populated if it is other than English subject. And let's call it as English as the column name. So let's start seeing this data first. So as we can see, if the record is for English subject, it will show only those data here and others will be populated with null as the subject is other than English. So on similar lines, we will have it done for all the other subjects. So let's quickly do it for all the 5 subjects. Next subject is geography. So let's create a separate column for geography by checking if the subject name is geography, then only keep that marks. Similarly, we have history. So let's create separate column for history. And then we have mathematics and science. Okay, so now we have what we have done with this is we have created separate columns for each of the subject. So let's quickly see how. Okay, let's remove the comma from here. So let's quickly see what is the output here. Okay, so now what we have done is each of the marks as we see based on the subject to which it belongs, it will be populated in that particular column. So this is what we have done. We have segregated this into 5 different columns. Now what we will do is instead of having marks, because it is not the marks that we have to show in the output, what we have to show is the student ID and student name. So instead of marks, what we will do is we will concatenate student ID separate by hyphen and we will add the student name. So instead of marks, that is what we will have in each of these columns. So let's quickly replace this marks with student ID and student name. Now let's run and see the output. Okay, so as we can see, now we are nearing to the solution. We have identified for every subject who are the toppers, and then we have got their student ID and student name. As a next step, we need to get all this data as part of a single record. So how we can do that is, as we can see, all the other records are having null populated apart from the data that we want. So here we can use either the min function or max function, which will consider only this data and discard all the nulls. So what we will do is we will remove all the other columns, as in the output we only require these columns. So let's add the max function quickly for each of these columns to get all the nulls removed out and have a single record created, as this is a aggregation. So let's add this closing brackets everywhere, that is for the max function. And now let's run and see the output. So as we can see, we have determined for every subject who are the toppers. So we have displayed the student ID along with the student name across each of the subject, and that is what we were looking at. And this way we have solved the problem. So let's quickly summarize what we have done to solve this problem. So as we know that we wanted to find the topper in each of the subject, and also in case 2 students have scored same marks, we wanted the student with lower student ID to be shown as the topper. So to start with, what we did is, first of all, we wanted to identify who are the toppers. So for that, we use the window ranking function row number. We have partitioned it based on the subject name. Why we have done the partitioning? Because for every subject, we wanted to identify who are the toppers. So whenever we have separate grouping categories, based on that, we place respective columns in partition by. After that, in the order by clause, we have specified that we wanted to do this ranking by having the marks sorted in descending order followed by student ID. That is, if the marks are same, after that, in those scenarios, we will have the ordering based on student ID, so that the student ID having sorted in ascending order, the lower student ID will have the lower rank. So that way we created the rank column. After that, we kept only those records where rank was 1, so that we got the toppers record. Finally, we got 5 new columns created for each of the subjects, and we use the case condition to identify if the subject name is English for that record, then only we kept that data in that particular column. So if it was for English, we kept the English student ID and student name. Similarly, for each of the subject, based on the checks, we got it segregated into separate columns. Finally, we use the max aggregation to have all the records present as a single record, so that we have the topper shown as a single record for every subject. So this way we solve the problem. So the create table and insert statement will be added as part of the description. Please use it for your practice. If you have any alternative solution, please add it as part of the comments. If you found the video useful, please like it. If you have not yet subscribed the channel, please subscribe and please provide your feedback in the comments. Thank you.